All our choices were made to reflect and confront us in the present, not to say, look what they did then, rather look what we do now.
A lot of pro-genocide right-wing clowns are unhappy this morning after last night the Oscars once again spoke to a serious issue that is ongoing. So whether or not you watch them, and I didn't, because I just don't care. I'm not saying that to brag. I know some people are like, I don't watch the Oscars. I'm cool. I don't care. I don't care. But whether or not you care, the Oscars still hold cultural significance, and it has for decades, whether it was around the Marlon Brando rejecting his Academy Award in favor of protesting Hollywood's mistreatment of Native Americans, or Michael Moore discussing the Iraq War. Last night was no different in that another major, incredibly important issue was brought up, first by protesters outside. So 1,000 Gaza protesters rally in Hollywood ahead of Oscars blocking traffic. This apparently led to delays on the red carpet. Guardian writing here, stars wear red Gaza ceasefire pins at Oscars as protest delays arrival. So some of the arrivals wore these red pins. And Mark Ruffalo came late to the red carpet saying this.
We're late. The Palestinian protest shut down the Oscars tonight. Humanity wins.
All right, so Mark Ruffalo coming out in support of the protest, saying humanity wins. He's always been one of the more vocal actors that have often been on the sides of human rights and fighting for the right thing, so it's good to see that. But this speech is really what stole the show and what people are still talking about, including people that were really bothered by it because they support genocide, apparently. So Zone of Interest director Jonathan Glazer spoke out about Israel's weaponization of the Holocaust in his Oscar acceptance speech. So his movie Zone of Interest, which I have not seen, I don't watch many movies generally. I really only saw Oppenheimer last year. But now that I know of this movie and I've read about it, I do want to see this. It sounds very interesting. It surrounds, I'm not going to, I guess, spoil anything here because I haven't watched it, but it surrounds a German family during World War II that was living right next to the Auschwitz concentration camp and basically living their happy lives while the absolute, worst of humanity was right next door. So he goes on to give this speech, and this is fantastic.
Thank you to the Academy for this honor, and to our partners A24 Film for Access and the Polish Film Institute, to the Auschwitz-Birkenau State Museum for their trust and guidance, to my producers, actors, collaborators. All our choices were made to reflect and confront us in the present, not to say, look what they did then, rather look what we do now. Our film shows where dehumanization leads at its worst. It shaped all of our past and present. Right now, we stand here as men who refute their Jewishness and the Holocaust being hijacked by an occupation which has led to conflict for so many innocent people. Whether the victims of October the 7th in Israel, or the ongoing attack on Gaza, all are victims of this dehumanization. How do we resist? Alexandra Bistron Kaladziejczak, the girl who glows in the film as she did in life, chose to. I dedicate this to her memory and her resistance. Thank you.
So just a fantastic speech there from Jonathan Glazer, really speaking to this issue that he's able to relate as well through his film, where he even discusses there, I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially saying that the film isn't necessarily about, oh, look at those people back then and what they were able to overlook in terms of what was happening right beside them, but it's a way to reflect on what we're doing now and how we are ignoring the atrocities being committed now. And this, the quote is very clear. We stand here as men who refute their Jewishness and the Holocaust being hijacked by an occupation which has led to conflict for so many innocent people. Well, of course, this was completely taken out of context and edited as a way to try and smear him and say something that he was not saying. Prime example right here. This is a right-wing commentator. I've discussed her absolute garbage before. It's the lies aren't even good because they're just so clearly refuted. Look at how she takes this quote out of context. I simply cannot fathom the moral rot in someone's soul that leads them to win an award for a movie about the Holocaust, and with the platform given to them to accept that award by saying, "We stand here as men who refute their Jewishness." Is that what he said? That's clearly not what he said. It's like she puts a period at the end of it, as if that's the end of a sentence. Who refute their Jewishness and the Holocaust being hijacked. He refutes his Jewishness and the Holocaust being hijacked by the Israeli occupation, which has led to conflict for so many innocent people. This is just anyone else, any other political commentator that isn't a right-wing clown who doesn't work for a right-wing outlet would be fired over something this blatant, a lie this obvious. But because she's a right-wing clown and works for a right-wing organization, she's encouraged to be this ridiculous. Look, from what I've seen, this isn't the majority of reaction. The majority of reaction, I want to be clear, is in support of the speech and in support of humanity, human rights, in support of a ceasefire. But freaks like this rise to the top. Abe Greenwald here. This is who is he? The executive editor of Commentary. I dedicate Jonathan Glazer's Oscar to the brave and brilliant men and women of the IDF and to the state of Israel. Don't stop till the enemy is defeated. Yes, the IDF, which has committed war crime after war crime, including specific examples like this: a group of Palestinian men waving a white flag is shot at, dozens of elderly Gazans executed by Israeli troops. And again, these are individual stories, but there's already over 30,000 Palestinians killed in Gaza since October 7th. We're not even including everything that took place before October 7th to Palestinians in both Gaza and the West Bank. 50 years of occupation abuses committed by the IDF. John Podhoretz, who is as I'll show you in a second here, at least in the past, a frequent guest of MSNBC, writing here, Jonathan Glazer, you can go F yourself and stuff your Oscar up your ass. Very level-headed response by John here. He was on MSNBC on Morning Joe as recently as November 1st. And then at some point after that, he's a New York Times or New York Post columnist. He accused MSNBC's Ali Velshi and Mehdi Hassan of being Hamas-run. I am not sure if he has appeared on MSNBC since then, but that kind of gives you an idea of the kind of clowns that Morning Joe has on their panel. Arlene Parsa here writing, or I should say Arlen Parsa, or Parsa. The fact that a Jewish director of a highly acclaimed film about the Holocaust made in collaboration with the Auschwitz Museum is being accused of anti-Semitism by right-wingers simply because he decried the violence done to Palestinian civilians in his name says so much. Yeah. APAC writing here. There was a war in Gaza, and this is before the speech to be clear, but I just want to give you some context here. There was a war in Gaza because Hamas broke a permanent ceasefire on October 7th. This is a claim that is often put out there. It's easily refuted. Zachary Foster has a great breakdown here, saying, was there a ceasefire on October 6th? And goes news story after news story of ongoing human rights abuses committed by the right-wing Israeli government on Palestinians. Israeli forces killed 3 Palestinians in the West Bank. That's on the 5th, the day before, or 2 days before October 7th. September 22nd, Israeli forces killed a Palestinian, an 18-year-old Palestinian. And again, it goes on and on and on. We could be here all day, all night, because this has gone on for 50 years. So this account also showcasing, in response to that AIPAC tweet, nobody is falling for this anymore. So this was a piece that was put out October 6th. 2023 is the deadliest year for Palestinian children, say human rights groups. That was even before the ongoing massacres committed by the right-wing Israeli government following October 7th. Not to mention, I've shown this before, this graph has not been updated since June or January 2nd. But the reason I'm showing this is because to showcase all the destruction well before last year. So estimated fatalities in Gaza since October 7th and estimated fatalities in Israel since October 7th. And you can kind of see the power imbalance there. Israel's war in Gaza, I don't need to I'm going to show this. I'm already getting more depressed the more I go through the story. This is the result. So the numbers just keep climbing. Now, to maybe some potential end, I shouldn't say end because I don't want to get anybody's hopes up here. But Biden recently came out with a red line on Gaza saying can't have another 30,000 Palestinians dead. I'm not sure why the first 30,000 were okay, but his red line is apparently the potential invasion of Rafah, which Netanyahu reacted to, saying he vows to defy Biden's red line on Rafah. I'm going to have to see Biden actually do something to believe he'll do anything in terms of ending weapons support to the Israeli government, ending funding of the right-wing Israeli government as they continue committing war crimes. I have a hard time believing that Biden's going to care at this point, considering he hasn't cared up to now. But we'll see who blinks first here. And just to show you, what they are doing. Images of U.S. airdrops of food into the Gaza Strip made headlines in recent days, but as the Washington Post revealed this week, the Biden administration has also approved more than 100 separate weapons transfers to Israel over the last 5 months. Dropping food into an area where you are supporting the ongoing genocide is, for lack of a better term here, bizarre. You can't claim to care because you're dropping food when you are continuing to support the aggressor in the ongoing war crimes and atrocities being committed in Gaza. I forget who I saw say this weekend, but there's a way to help. Dropping food is, sure, helping. Is it adequate? There's a difference between help and what is adequate. Is dropping food maybe helping some people there who need food? Of course. Is it anywhere near adequate? Is it enough? Clearly not. To be on both sides, to attempt to be on both sides of this by funding the war and dropping food is just, and to be clear, it's not a war because one side is doing all the destruction right now. It is just an ongoing bombardment.